This was supposed to be a lost year for Cincinnati, but they showed up for the first weekend. It made life difficult for the defending World Series champion. Who's not going to make our life difficult? That's going to be Jeff Carr, the host of Locked On Reds, who's our guest on today's episode of Locked On MLB.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. Thanks so much for making us your first listen, as we're available on all your free podcasting catchers. And be sure to tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see right there. You can call me Sully. On today's episode, which is being dropped on the 12th day of April, my true love gave to me Jeff Carr, the host of Locked On Reds. Does not rhyme, but that song is traditional and won't cost us any royalty fees. As we talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Reds, a team that had very low expectations, and yet, well, good for them. They've showed up to play. They showed up to play. And for the Braves, who thought they could circle the calendar, hey, there's some easy wins for us. Boom. Think again. Now, as I scratch my notes, I can tell you this show is available on all your free podcasts and catchers. You can follow us at Locked On MLB on both Twitter and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Well, look at if you follow the Locked On Podcast Network, one of the ubiquitous voices that you will hear, even telling you to buy stuff in our ads, is the great Jeff Carr, the host of Locked On Reds. His pipes are so great, I can't keep him in the bullpen any longer. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Jeff Carr. How you doing, Jeff?
Well, daggone, I really appreciate that intro. I like that. I'm gonna have to get Steve to say that whenever we do our daily ones. I think I can. I think I can get him to say
Okay, I just built you up having these great pipes, and you start being mumble mouth on me? Thank you very much. What are you, warming up? Come on, it's the show.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's talk Reds. Boom, boom, boom.
Well, you had me in my thoughts there. No, it's I'm excited, Sully. This 2-2 series start. I kind of thought they were going to go 1-3 there, but the bullpen has been better, which is weird because they really didn't do much to get better in the offseason.
Well, you know what? That's part of the thing that sometimes happens. And I'll always point to this example for a team. I'm going to bring up a year that for Reds fans is going to be like putting a tarantula in front of me that they tend to recoil when I say 2012. But another team in 2012 went into that year, the Oakland Athletics, traded away everyone that wasn't nailed down. Bailey, Trevor Cahill, Gio Gonzalez. And people, oh, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. They're not even putting a major league team on. Fold the team. It's a disgrace. And they won the division. And they won the division because they gave a chance to a bunch of other players. Also, some of the players they got back in those deals worked out. And I'm not saying the Reds are going to win the division, but I am saying a couple of things here. The people who are on the team are major leaguers. And maybe major leaguers don't like to be considered pushovers. And maybe, I don't know, just maybe some people are like, hey, no one's expecting us to do anything. What's the worst thing that can happen? We could actually go out and play. Now, it's only 4 games. It's tough to get that excited. But tell us your favorite things that have happened in these first few days. And why was it Hunter Greene?
Yes, that was absolutely number one. Hunter Greene looked phenomenal, and we've been hearing about him ever since he was drafted, right? He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Like, This is the next LeBron for baseball. And when you say that, there's really no, tempering expectations. Oh, he's going to be kind of okay. No, when you say the next LeBron, that means he's going to be something special. And he started off, did he throw a perfect game? No, but everything worked. He's got 3 pitches that he can put wherever he wants in the zone. He's got a 100-mile-an-hour fastball on average that he can reach 104 with. And he's got a changeup that drops down to even 86 miles an hour. So if you're a batter in the box and you got to worry about 100 miles an hour, 86 miles an hour, or a slider that's going to start at your knees and end up in the dugout on the other side of the field, I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do in the box. And, tip the cap to a couple of guys who took him yard. But for the most part, Hunter Greene looks the part with his stuff, and he's really good at keeping himself calm, which that's not really something rookies are good at.
Do you know what the thing that's amazing about Hunter Greene is? I feel like I've been hearing his name for a long time.
Yes.
I feel like he's been, at least for those of us who follow baseball and try to figure out who the next great player is and going to be like that. He was the second pick overall in the 2017 draft. He's only 22 years old. He's going to be 23 like in a couple of months, right? But like he's still a super young kid. Let's just go over one thing that's interesting here is that 2017 draft so far has not produced a lot of major leaguers at this point. I mean, it is only a few years ago, but I mean, right now, Trevor Rogers and Tanner Houck are probably, and Shane Baz are probably the biggest names from that.
Shane Baz on the IL right now.
Yeah.
Much to the ire of my fantasy team.
But, you take a look at that squad. The first overall pick was Royce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins. And he's right now, I mean, he hasn't played since 2019.
Yep.
So
and honestly,
maybe they drafted well.
Like Hunter Greene, it's kind of a weird commentary on the way that baseball prospects and the next phenoms develop, right? Because he was a high school player that was drafted out of high school. So everyone knew, if you're a baseball fan, you knew you're not going to see this kid for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Every baseball fan knows that. Every casual fan that kind of watches baseball is like, where'd that guy go? Like, we saw him on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and then all of a sudden he disappears. It's just the way things go, man. You can't get put right into the major leagues when you're drafted right out of high school. But it's like you said, 22, starting at that age and basically being 23, he has a long career ahead of him, especially showing the skills that he has. I mean, they were talking about it in between pitches. He was doing breathing exercises. Yeah. Like, what? I don't do breathing exercises, and I probably should, but I
wasn't going to say anything.
Yeah. So it was phenomenal to watch him. He's by far my favorite thing so far in these first 4 games.
Now, remember, though, he did not pitch at all in 2019, and he did not pitch in the truncated 2020. And most minor leaguers didn't pitch in 2020. Right. So it was as if he had a couple of years off. He was outstanding in Chattanooga last year at the Noog, and then he did well. Certainly had a great strikeout to innings pitch ratio, pitching for Louisville last year, but did not get the call up. Got the call up this year, pitched well, obviously got the victory in his first ever game. And right there, that's like an acquisition. Everyone talks about who they traded away. Well, this is someone who they acquired, and they have someone who, I mean, do we know what he's going to do for the full season yet? Not really, obviously, because the full season hasn't happened yet, but to add someone, a player like this could add like this giant boost of energy to a franchise, especially one that's had, some, I don't want to say down on their luck because they were a playoff team in August last year. Right. Maybe we forget that. We're talking like this is like the Orioles or the Pirates. They were a playoff team in August last year.
Right. It was the 5th best record since the turn of the century. We should have been celebrating it, but it felt like such a huge disappointment because they missed, because the St. Louis Cardinals decided to have the best winning streak in the history of their franchise there at the end of the year. But overall, I mean, even with this new playoff system where, everybody gets in, they would have made it with 83 wins. So you looked at that and you said, okay, either you stand pat, make a move here or there, and then you're pretty good, bring back Castellanos, but instead they just pushed off everybody. They were trading Suarez, they were trading Winker, and they traded Winker with Suarez to get rid of his contract, which honestly, I didn't think that was that bad. Like, I thought he was going to bounce back this year. He had a tough, year and a half there, but I thought he was going to bounce back, and the front office made this big gesture during the offseason that said, yes, we are going to realign payroll to our resources, but we will not attach top prospects to bad contracts. So you're going to attach all-stars to bad contracts? That one made no sense to me, but you're right. The guys that they got back, and they've got Nick Lodolo making his major league debut on Wednesday against the Guardians. First, early game of the season there, 12:30 start time. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to bring, because Hunter Greene and Nick Lodolo are the future of Reds pitching alongside a lot of these young guys who have debuted in the bullpen for them this year.
Well, look, the Hunter Greene was like one of the big stories of what happened in baseball these first few days, and it was a great story, especially someone who earned their way back. Yeah. And I think that was great. And they gave the Reds, as I said, that burst of energy that they really needed. And if you need a burst of energy, may I recommend you grab yourself a Built Bar. Built Bars. They're the best tasting protein bars out there, and they give you that boost. Hey, Jeff Carr, I don't think I need to ask you this. Have you tried the Puffs?
Love the Puffs, Sully. Had a banana cream puff earlier.
Oh, yeah. I'm big on cinnamon. I love the cinnamony churro, but yeah, banana cream pie. Can't go wrong with banana cream pie. I mean, that's really great. The coconut marshmallow, they're great. And they're marshmallowy. And this may sound like an abomination, but they're protein-infused marshmallows. But don't be concerned. That's great. That's a good thing. You got protein, you got marshmallows together. Boom. Look there's some people don't realize this, but candy bars are not healthy for you. A lot of people don't realize this. They're like, oh, I'm working on my figure. I'm trying to get healthier. So let me pound some candy bars. Okay. Oh man, I never get healthier than Halloween night. But do you know what? It turns out that that's not the case. Some candy bars are going to have like 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, dozens of net carbs. Why did anyone tell me that candy bars are unhealthy? But you need to have that thing that feels like it could be a candy bar, but it's good for you. Boom, Built Bars. I'm way ahead of you. Okay? Low calorie, boom. High protein, yeah. Replace your candy bars with these. They're better. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate. I said, some of you are out there, but not the Puffs. Yes, the Puffs are included. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carb, and 17 grams of protein. You might be saying, Sully, cite your source. I say, okay, go to Built.com and go to the macros chart. That's where my source is. But you say, Sully, what about the flavors? Flavors are great. Mint brownie, boom. Coconut almond, bam. My personal favorite, raspberry. What's yours, Jeff Carr?
Oh, I gotta love me some cherry barcia. And honestly, the Puffs are my favorite as well. Give me that coconut puff.
Give me that coconut puff. This is a new song. This is how good Built Bars are. They make me compose music. and the thing about it is they compose these bars. And they never say, we're going to make them healthy first and then try to make them taste good. They go the other way. They say, we're going to make them taste great. Then we're going to figure out how to make it healthy. I don't know how they do it. But they're like Stephen Kwan. They're getting on base every single time. Now, here's what you should do right now. Even while you're listening to this podcast, go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. You can't do better than that. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. Your second listen, make that be Locked On Reds. It'll be well worth your time. Your third listen, Locked On MLB Prospects, hosted by friend of the podcast, Lindsey Crosby. He is a prospect ENCYCLOPEDIA encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're here with Jeff Carr. He's of Locked On Reds. Hey, I have my Red Sox hat here for this year. I got my Red Sox hat.
Nice.
Which was the hat that they wore in the 1970s when they lost the World Series to the Reds, which brings us back to the host of Locked On Reds. That would be Jeff Carr. That's your look at your. There's your lower third right there, host of Locked On Reds. Hunter has come on and he did his job. Mm-hmm. What other names have that we may not recognize are on this team that may help contribute to a better than expected start for the Cincinnati Reds?
It's been great so far, the brand new catcher, Tyler Stevenson. And he's not brand new. He was the number 2 catcher last year. But with the way that the Reds kind of unceremoniously dumped Tucker Barnhart to the Detroit Tigers, Tyler Stevenson became that dude. And he has been fantastic, whether you're talking about with the glove or with the bat. Hit his first home run on Sunday, but he's got a very nice start to the season in the lineup, and he's going to be looked upon to be either the cleanup hitter, the 5 hitter, maybe the 3-hole hitter, but middle of the order stalwart. And we're talking about a dude that has played 1.5 seasons for his entire career, and he is just that good of a hitter. Very smart at the plate, does not swing at bad pitches, and he has a line drive profile to him. He doesn't try to lift the ball. It just happens because sometimes he just clobbers the ball to death. And I love that. There's been a lot of great young dudes out of the bullpen. I start first with Tony Santeon. Tony Santeon was a dude who was a starting pitching prospect for this team for multiple years, and it just kind of took him a few years to finally get to the show. And he started out of the rotation last season when he was called up, but then they kind of realized he was really good when he could focus on 1 to 2 innings max and really get that fastball slider combo working. He's got a wipeout slider that's going to dodge around the bat when he sets it up very nicely with the fastball inside. But my favorite thing about Tony Santeon by far is the most apt description you can give a bullpen pitcher, and that is he's a bulldog on the mound. He doesn't care if he's facing down Freddie Freeman, if he's facing down Matt Olson, if he's facing down Babe Ruth. I'm pretty sure he'd stay on the mound and he'd be just staring them down like, I'm getting you out, man. You're getting out. And that's exactly what Tony Santeon does. He's been pitching very well to start the season. Also, a really good performance out of the rotation from Tyler Mahle. Mm-hmm. Last year, had some really weird home road splits. He was amazing on the road and terrible at home. Hopefully that normalizes, and we'll be talking about a Cy Young performance from him for this 2022 season, but he looks like he's in really good shape, pitched very strongly against the Braves there on the first game of the season. We're not going to call it opening day, Sully. Opening day's today because this is the first Reds home game. That's when opening day is. But yeah, really good performance from him. And Kyle Farmer, too. That's one other name that I'll say out of the lineup. He has been phenomenal when you're talking about taking what the pitchers give him. He actually has 4 RBIs over the weekend. Very good at-bats overall for him. And he's looking to have an everyday spot. When you're talking about the injury to Jose Barrero, that's why he's playing shortstop. But he's making an argument to play third base whenever Barrero comes back because Mike Moustakas is not looking good.
Yeah. By the way, you had mentioned about the unceremonious dump to Detroit. One player they did get from Detroit, actually, I think he got him from Texas, but he played for Detroit last year and the last bunch of years, was Buck Farmer.
Yep.
Buck Farmer, relief pitcher, had a couple of decent years as a middle reliever for the Detroit Tigers, and is basically there to give a little bit of depth to the bullpen. Hopefully that he will, hopefully we'll give him a little bit of a few innings out of the pen. All I know is this: that name, Buck Farmer, is one of the best for a non-star since probably Razor Shines of the Montreal Expos in the 1980s, which is, Oda B. McDowell at that same time. But Buck Farmer, that's I think John Wayne played Buck Farmer in a one of the westerns he was in. That's a phenomenal name. So I hope he does well, just because, man, you got to rely on Buck Farmer.
I want to get a chant going. If he gets brought out of the bullpen at home, I want to get the entire stadium chanting, Buck, Buck, Buck.
Yeah, here's the deal. If you switch the first letter of each names, it could be a much different cheer. A much, much different cheer.
Yes, it could.
Yeah. But we don't want to get a mature rating on this podcast, so we're going to leave it at that. This is a family podcast that used to sell Blue Chew. But the fact of the matter is, there's a couple other players I want to get your thoughts on. I know that you aren't Lindsey Crosby, who's the host of, by the way, the Locked On MLB Prospects. He's a prospect encyclopedia. He goes deep on the stars of tomorrow in baseball. His podcast, Locked On MLB Prospects, is free and available where you get your podcasts. I want to take a look at some of the young players who are coming up. I mean, you have Nick Lodolo is supposedly on the, Graham Ashcraft, I believe you'd mentioned, or maybe I imagine you mentioned him. Lopez, Alheio Lopez. There's a couple players who seem to be on the cusp of coming up. And much like the emergence of Hunter Greene, an infusion of young players on the team like this is the key, I think, to having an unexpected good season. I think I'll bring up 2012 again. Again, I'm sorry I'm doing that. But the A's had a lot of players like that. That was also the year Washington turned it around. That was the year of controversially they were going to shut down Strasburg. That's because they made that choice when they thought, well, the Phillies and the Marlins and the Mets are going to be better than us. So we're going to be finished probably third or fourth. So it won't matter that we're going to rest Strasburg for September. They didn't realize everything was going to click at once, and it caught them off guard. In the end, when Strasburg became the World Series MVP, finally Rizzo could look around and say, like, I was vindicated. I was vindicated finally. No one can ever give me crap about that again. But one of the reasons why that I'm bringing up teams like this that were teams that were not expected to contend and contended. And there are two versions of that. Like the 2013 Red Sox, where they just acquired a bunch of veterans who happen to all click at the same time. And the other is a team that brings up a lot of young players who happen to click at the same time. And the Reds are potentially that team with a bunch of young players. And also keeping in mind what you and I said, they weren't a bad team last year.
Exactly. And honestly, that's where the enthusiasm that I had, even when they were making those trades to give away our favorite stars of yesterday, we knew that there were plenty of players that the future of the Reds depends on who are coming up, like Hunter Greene, like Nick Lodolo, Jonathan India already here, Tyler Stevenson already here. They had a core of guys that you're like, that's the future. Because that was what was so depressing back in 2014, whenever you realized that the Reds were coming out of their window of contention and they really didn't have a core to hand the ball to. Like, it was a bunch of guys that you really had to rely on some good trades, and they didn't make good trades for the rebuild. So that's why they went into just the mire of mediocrity for a good solid 6 years. Now, this is totally different. They've got a lot of young studs, and Nick Lodolo is really going to be fun to watch. Where Hunter Greene has the electric stuff, Nick Lodolo has great command. He is able to really work the strike zone, and he's very calm, cool, and collective with a sidearm left-hand delivery. That's huge for this Reds team that, honestly, outside of Wade Miley, you really can't point to a lot of great left-handed pitchers over the last 10 years. And even saying that Wade Miley was great was a stretch. I mean, he had a great year.
I was going to let that slide, but
yeah. I mean, he just had a good year. But
he's a talented pitcher. Yeah, I mean, he's a talented pitcher. There's no. I mean, I'm not besmirching it. Just saying, great. Wow, that's we'll go there.
Right, because I was thinking of his performance last season when I made the statement this offseason of saying, I hope Nick Lodolo is kind of like, a young Wade Miley. And they're like, good Lord, I hope he's way better than that. Like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for much, much better. And he's going to be a lot of fun to watch. You mentioned Graham Ashcraft. Seeing him in spring training, maybe it was a little bit of nerves, but he pitches out of the stretch totally. He does not pitch out of the windup at all. And he kind of looks a little wild with his delivery. I don't know, like I said, if that was nerves or what have you, but he's got some good stuff. It just, when you watch him pitch, you're concerned for the hitter because you're like, this might hit you. I don't know. Duck, I guess. So I'm not sure there. But Alheio Lopez is an interesting case. You mentioned him. He's a guy that got called up last year and got like 20 seconds of attention. He played a couple of games. He's a switch hitter. He can play a lot of different positions in the infield. They tried him in the left field as well. Kind of was all right there. Doesn't quite have the arm to be an everyday outfielder, but in a pinch he could do it. But then he got sent down very quickly. They signed Donovan Solano. They signed Colin Moran. They signed these dudes, and you're like, is Alejo Lopez not going to get a shot here? Like, it feels like he should be getting more of a chance, and maybe he will later on this season, but he didn't really have the best of spring trainings, and it almost felt like he got completely overlooked then, because he was one of the first dudes to get cut from Major League camp and sent to the minor league side of camp. So I do wonder about him, because I would like to see more. He's fast. He's got a smart disposition, at least at the plate, pretty good with the strike zone, and he's got a good glove. So I would love to see him get a little bit more of a shot when you're talking about that. Plus, there's some dudes who, over the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing, and one of those dudes is playing for the Dayton Dragons right now, which is about 40 minutes north of where I live, Elly De La Cruz. That dude is going to be one of those like franchise-altering prospects. Firmly believe that. And
say that name again.
Elly De La Cruz.
Elly De La Cruz. Now imagine rooting for a team that has Elly De La Cruz and Buck Farmer, and we are leading the league in awesome names.
And that's a mic drop. Yeah. No. That's
well, we're here with Jeff Carr of Locked On Reds. Hey, I'm going to bring up two other names here. Obviously, one of the most likable and easy to root for people on the planet Earth, not just in baseball, but maybe even in life, is Joey Votto. He is a Red, one of the great Reds. Just has
my
done
favorite
everything
of all time,
and he has given Reds fans a decade and a half. You can't ask for more than that in this day and age of free agency. And he hasn't been. He had a good year last year. A very good OPS last year. He probably could have won the MVP in 2017, and was still an outstanding player in 2018. It's been a while since he has been one of the true elites in the game, but he is still. You need to have him on the team. He's like the centerpiece of a bingo card, and it would be just terrible if the Reds turn things around and Joey Votto is not there. Yes. He's the last remaining soul of the 2010 squad that had the single greatest moment in Great American Ballpark, which is the Bruce home run. One of the things that is most frustrating about the Reds, and for that matter, the Pirates, is that they built these wonderful new ballparks, and we haven't filled those ballparks with memories yet.
Right. It'd be like the going away episode of The Office on Toby, whenever they're just like, we could put together a slideshow, but there's only two pictures, and they're both the same picture. That's the best memories of this ballpark so far.
I mean, the Bruce home run was a great moment. There's no getting around that, especially based upon the frustrations that the Reds had leading up to that, and finally getting back into the playoffs. Roland's ball, if it didn't hook foul, would have been another great one. Yeah. Sorry, man. Sorry. But I've been to
Todd Frazier's home run derby.
Yes.
That
Okay.
Was awesome.
I've been to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a great baseball city. They need to have some more memories like that. Yeah. And I need to ask. This is maybe a rough question to ask, but when you take a look at a team like this, we have Nick Kroll is in charge, and you have Sean Pender as your farm director. Is David Bell the right guy for this team? And does that matter if he's the right guy for this team? Is he the guy? Is he Kroll's guy?
I think so. And to be honest with you, one of the biggest reasons is something that we don't see every day, and that's his ability to control the folks in the locker room, the personalities that are there. There's so much that is written by beat writers, and there's so many quotes from players that I don't think are just, help, I'm trapped, I have to say what I'm supposed to say. They're actual genuine thoughts. Like, they're not trying to toe the company line. I believe that he is the guy that can control the personalities. It's interesting the way that he handles the lineup, and so far this year, he really hasn't made too many changes aside from the platoon splits when you're talking about a lefty or a righty. but for the most part, he's had very similar spots, and it's weird that Tommy Pham's batting third right now, but I think part of that is the fact that he's the other veteran on this lineup other than Joey Votto, and so they're going to be like, okay, let's see what we can get out of him there. But I think that David Bell is the guy. And what you said about Joey Votto, I tell you, everything that he's gone through. And it's funny because he himself came up with the idea because he's like, I used to be MVP Votto, then I was, get on base Votto, doesn't strike out Votto, then I was decline phase Votto. Last year I was, hitting home runs, Ted Lasso Votto, and now it's just midlife crisis Votto. I'm just in my midlife crisis. Like, I got TikToks, I got Instagram, he's on Twitter now. I mean, he's all over the place on social media.
Does he have a new sports car? Does he pull up in the new
I think he probably does. Actually, knowing Joey, he probably found a convertible smart car that I think he drives. I can.
Or shows up in a horse dressed as a Mountie,
Yes, that was still one of the top best interviews ever. But he is a dude that deserves a lot more than what this team has given him. And he was even asked the question whenever Jesse Winker and Eugenio Suarez were traded. They're like, are you going to demand a trade? Are you going to go into the front office and say, trade me to a contender? And he said, absolutely not. It has never occurred to me to not be here for the length of my contract. I will honor this contract. I will honor this jersey. And if they come to me with that idea, then we can talk about it. But I will not leave this team unless that's what they think is the best course of action for this team. And by no means.
Easiest guy to root for in baseball. Easiest guy. Name someone who's easier to root for.
Easiest. I know that there are some good players out there. I really do. And I'm not trying to step on them, but it's Joey Votto, man. I
can't. So we have the Bieber and the newly branded Guardians, whose offense woke up in after the first couple of games where they scored 1 run over the first 2 games. Then they scored 27 runs over the next 2 games. So it's an interesting back and forth. The very kind of Harvey Dent level offense that Cleveland has at this point. Thank you for laughing at that one. It's nominal opening day because it's the Reds opener, and that should always be how we open the season. I think we should open the season with the All-Star game. That's my take. You start the season. I've been saying that for years. You start it with all the stars. They all come out. It doesn't work in the middle of the year anymore. Start the season with the All-Star game. Reintroduce the stars to everybody. See the big stars who showed up in new uniforms for the first time. There's some automatic All-Stars like the MVP, the Cy Young, the Rookie of the Year, the World Series MVP, all get to show up. And you have the fan voting all throughout the offseason. So you have people talking baseball and everything like that. And you see the charts. Trout is being caught up with this. So that's what you should do. And then you start the season, obviously in a place where it's, warm weather or in a dome, and becomes this big celebration to introduce baseball's back. The stars are back, and nobody plays more than an inning anyway.
Right.
So it's just the idea of the rotation of the players becomes more fun. But the real show-stopping number, and which is actually always my favorite part of the All-Star game, is not the game. I couldn't give a damn about the game. I love when all the players line up and they're all introduced. That's my favorite part, because you get to see everybody. And boy, you want to have fun, go back and on YouTube. And by fun, I mean, if you're a psychopath like myself, go on YouTube and you see the player introductions from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And there's sometimes you go like, oh my God, I forgot he was ever an all-star. Or if you like, Roberto Kelly was an all-star with the Reds?
Right.
What? Willie Randolph was an all-star with the Dodgers? What? But I love when you see stuff like that, and the truly terrible teams that had the obligatory all-star, a tradition I never want to end, to have the really lousy team, and you say, all right, this guy. I remember there was one, I forget who it was. It was one year the Royals who were terrible, and they had a pitcher who had an ERA over 5, and he was their all-star because it was like, we got nobody.
Is that like Luke Hochevar or something?
No, it wasn't Hochevar. It was it was a Latin name. I can't remember. It was like Jose Rosado, maybe it was. Okay, I'm going to go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth. I remember there was a player for the Phillies in 1995 who God, what was it? It was a Tyler something. I got to look that up here. But he was on the All-Star team because he had a really good first half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at his stats for the rest of the year, he was like 8-9 with an ERA in the fives or something. And then he never pitched again. It was like, why is this guy's an all-star and Kirk Gibson was never an all-star? Who was that? That was Tyler Greene. That's right. Tyler Greene, all-star. All-star Tyler. And again, mind you, everybody, when I say this, I understand. Tyler Greene made the major leagues. He's obviously great.
Right.
Anybody who makes the major leagues for an hour is obviously great. Okay. Don't come at me on that. And if he was even considered for the All-Star game and was not the Phillies' lone All-Star representative that year, obviously he pitched well that first half of the season. So please, 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 this is not me slighting Tyler Greene. It's just he went 8-9. His ERA was 5.31. He struck out 85. His 85 strikeouts, 66 walks, a 1.585 WHIP. He didn't play the next year, and then 97 and 98 he pitched a little bit, and then he was done. But he was an all-star because the all-stars penalize people who had good second halves.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's true.
And it rewards those who have really fast first halves. And so that's what I said. Like Kirk Gibson never made an all-star team. Terry Pendleton won the MVP in 1991 and was not an all-star in 1991.
What year was it? Was it maybe it was 2012 or 2011 that Joey Votto was like a last player voted in? Like, because it was after he was MVP.
Yeah.
I forget. It might have been 2013, but yeah.
Well, another one is Jake Arrieta won the Cy Young Award in 2015, but was not on the All-Star team that year.
Right.
Because it's basically who had the best first 2 months of the season.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be the
Stephen Kwan's going to make the All-Star team this year based on the first couple of days, Sorry.
Yeah, he's got the on base of like 1,500.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because that's the whole point, is to be a spectacle. I don't want to hear about, it's about who's got home field advantage in the World Series. No. Stop it. It's a spectacle. It's fun. Yeah. I like the idea of having it at the beginning of the year. That's how it should go.
Yeah. To me, that's because, first of all, I hate it when it starts overseas. It's like, while you were sleeping, Major League Baseball began. Right. Shh, don't wake up. They're playing in Australia. And then they come back to play more spring training games, but they already have 2 regular season games under their belt. It's like, what? I'm sorry? Who?
Yeah, starting pitchers going 4 innings, and they're like, ooh, and that seemed like that was taxing for him. It's like, well, yeah, because they're not done with spring training yet.
The only good thing that happened in starting any season overseas was in 2019, the Mariners were in the Tokyo Dome.
I do love that. Yeah.
And Ichiro came back to play those 2 games.
Yeah.
And so Ichiro got to finish his career with the Mariners, but finish them in Tokyo. So there was something, and I was a huge Ichiro fan. Oh, yeah. And seeing that was such a wonderful way to end his career. I thought that was just perfect, absolutely perfect. And so, and by the way, that was the year where the Mariners got off to a fantastic start, and then did an absolute nosedive. Although I am picking the Mariners to win the division this year.
They're doing it this year. Yep.
I think they're going to have a wonderful year, and maybe the Reds will, if because keep a couple of things in mind. The Cardinals are vulnerable, And the Brewers, the Brewers were my pick to win the division. I think most people's pick to win the division. But every year there's a team that everybody in their moose picks to win the division that doesn't win the division.
Right.
Every year there's the team that obviously going to make the postseason misses the postseason. San Diego last year, hello. So,
la, la, la. Yeah, I'm with you.
The Brewers
because
are not a juggernaut.
In my most optimistic of states, talking about how could the Reds win this division, well, the Brewers enjoyed quite a bit of health last year. They did not have a whole lot of big injuries that really hurt them. Did Christian Yelich take a step back? Yes. But their pitching staff stayed largely healthy. What happens?
That's why I thought they were going to win the World Series when they went into the postseason, because I thought they had the best pitching staff. I thought they were going to beat Atlanta and then take whoever was beaten up between San Francisco and Los Angeles. Right. And I actually believe if they beat Atlanta, they would have won the World Series.
If Devin Williams doesn't punch a wall, does he? do they win the World Series?
Maybe.
That's the thing. Like, I'm glad I'm not a Brewers fan, because I'd be like,
how fragile reality is. But keep in mind, Milwaukee has a more recent World Series winner than Cleveland.
Yep. Yes, they do. And the Guardians, at least they extended Jose Ramirez, but yeah.
Oh, they did a couple. Listen to I dropped 2 shows on Monday for those of you, and listen to the second show where the other Jeff, who covers an Ohio team for Locked On, Jeff Ellis, and I talked about the Guardians and the fact that they did extend a couple of players to make, including Straw, to make their team they can look at for the next couple of years. All right, well, let's have because the Central and the American League is also a winnable division. But hey, Jeff Carr, let's wrap some things up here. By the way, Jeff Carr is the host of Locked On Reds. Another great show on Locked On Podcast Network I mentioned before was Locked On MLB Prospects, which is hosted by Lindsey Crosby. He's a prospect encyclopedia. He goes deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. Jeff Carr, where can people find your wonderful podcast?
You can find it anywhere podcasts are sold, Sully, including YouTube. And by sold, they're all free. But
I was going to let that slide, but you caught yourself.
But yeah, you can find me on YouTube as well. We are every single day. Plus, got a little bit of extra stuff coming in, especially as we're going down to the ballpark and things like this on opening day. You can expect some Frybox reviews.
That's right. And I am at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, and I have a very special thing that's happening this week. On Friday, I am going to be at Dodger Stadium for Jackie Robinson Day, the 75th anniversary, and I will be at Chavez Ravine for that. And guess what I'm going to be doing at Chavez Ravine? I'm going to be recording a podcast from Dodger Stadium during Jackie Robinson Day. Now, I won't be doing any play-by-play because I have not received express written consent from Major League Baseball to talk about the descriptions or the occurrence or the whatever that you know what I'm saying.
Descriptions and
you
I've
know,
heard it too many times.
You know the drill. But so take a look out either on Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to be doing a podcast where I'll be reporting what happened from Dodger Stadium on Jackie Robinson Day, and I'm really, really looking forward to doing that. But hey, we're dropping a bunch. When I come up with a podcast idea, we're going to record and we're going to drop it. That's how it works. That's the regular season, folks. Lockdown said, hey, can you give me 5 a week? And now, about 5 a day. All right, that may be pushing it. But we're going to be putting up these podcasts, and we're going to have a lot of fun. Jeff Carr, thanks so much for being part of the show. This has been Locked On MLB for the 12th day of April, where my true love gave to me Jeff Carr on Locked On MLB. I'm your pal, Sully. Thank you.